Today we're gonna install a power brake booster, new master cylinder. 68 Camaro already has disc brakes in the front. I don't know what brand they are, but this had manual brakes on it before. So you have to replace your proportioning valve. This one here is a drum rear, disc front. The original one had a drum front, drum rear, so you have to replace this, otherwise your brakes won't work properly. Your front brakes on a disc brake system do most of the braking, so this proportions how much goes to the front or the rear at a certain press of the pedal. So when I unboxed this, if you look inside this master cylinder, which you probably can't see, that hole right there is really deep. And we had this was the rod that was in here. You just have to pull this out. And we had to put this one in there. If you look, it goes way deeper in here. And so you have to have enough sticking out right here so it can go far enough in there. With this rod in there, of course, there's no way that was going to ever touch anything in there. It was going to be so far away from the end of that, it would have never, I don't know what it wouldn't have worked. So we changed that right away. And then pretty much when you look at your proportioning valve, this port right here in the rear, that will be the rear brakes. And then the front brakes on these old Camaros always had two lines, one for each side. So one line will go to here, and the other line will go to here. And then it comes with the indicator, which you're going to have to wire in. The old brakes had this same thing, a brake failure indicator. So that goes to your light on the inside of the car. Okay, so basically pretty easy to set up. Okay, now one thing I did do was I did stick a little piece of clay on the end of here, and I slid this together, and I wanted to see if there was clearance between here and the end of this hole in here, or you know how much space there was, and it was just about touching. That's where you want it. If it pushes on this, if it's pushing on it, then what's going to happen is your fluid won't return and you'll have brake drag. You may have brake lockup depending on how hard it's pushing. So we've already done that. So we slide this onto there. And then we're going to need this bracket, which is going to hold the proportioning valve. Let me turn this. Okay, so this bracket, the valve is going to be down low, like that. So that'll go like that. And then we just put a couple of nuts on here. Pretty easy. Sometimes those rods that are in the diaphragm itself will, they're adjustable. I put up different kits. It just depends on what kit you buy. This was a complete kit with master. I guess it's a matched kit. Okay, so we got that on there. Let's put some brake lines on here. Let's see, so this ends up going like a so. And that one is going to go right there. So this is probably the easiest way to do this. These particular lines here are, they are steel lines. They're pretty they're pretty stiff, so you don't really have any wiggle room, any bend. You can't bend anything or anything like that. So, okay, we got that. Let's put the other one on. So you got a long end and a short end. This one looks like it already has a short end on it. So we'll put the short end on there. Okay. Then we'll go and do it this way. This is probably the easiest way to do it. And the reason why I say that is if you bolt this stuff down tight, these lines are going to be way harder to put on. Just get them on there finger tight. Kind of wiggle this around a little bit to get that to go in far enough. And then this kit came with the bolts to bolt this bracket on. Oopsie. If you get everything too tight, then it's not going to be fun, because you need this to be able to move. Otherwise, these will feel like they're galling when they're going in, like that just did. So I loosened it up. Okay, so we've got that like of that. And there we go. Now you got another end over here. And this end goes to the brake pedal. Now you're going to want to be able to spin this all the way by hand, so I've worked this back and forth a little bit. The threads feel a little bit like they could use some work there. And the reason why I say that is when you're under you're going to have to adjust this while you're under the dashboard. So you want this to spin easy, because what's going to happen is you're going to put your brake pedal in here, and then you want to be able to spin this with your fingers, or you're never going to get it. Now, the one thing I don't know is if the length of this rod is correct or not. Here's the one that came out. And it's really hard to say. But anyway, so you get everything all tightened down. Now, when I tighten brake lines up, I don't just crank these things down really tight. I get them down to where they're at the bottom, and then I give them like a quarter of a turn. If you tighten them too tight, then you smash this flare that's down in here, so smash it down. And then that way, if you have to take this apart again, you can't put it, it's more apt to leak. The flare actually has a crush to it. It's a double flare, and so it has an actual crush to it. So you just want to crush that flare a little bit with this, rather than just crank it down on there and crush that flare all the way. It'll seal fine. You'll hold, 1,000 pounds of pressure, no problem. And then, now this particular master cylinder came with ports on both sides. We've got ports over on this side for the proportioning valve, and ports on the other side. I like these ones. Normally I bought these, they don't have ports. They've got the part where you could machine them in, but there's no ports there. This is pretty universal here. And then you got to take these swingies out. And on this side, they supply you with some plugs, so you can plug up one side or the other. Oh, come out of there. And if you look at that, it's flared it's a reversed. So on the inside of here, you can see there's a little flare poking out. This one here's going in, and that'll go down on top of that, and it'll seal. Shouldn't need any sealant. This stuff down in here looks like it's brass, so once you get down on it and get it tight, it'll seal just fine. And then you have your vacuum line. Your vacuum line is going to go to usually the back of the carburetor will have a spot on it, depending on, like the Edelbrocks do. I know that this car is going to have Edelbrock in it. It's already on the motor. And you just take a 3/8 piece of hose and plumb that to the back of the carburetor. As long as your motor has vacuum, you're good to go. And that's pretty much that. Like I said, you want to have this thing so it spins easy, because you're going to want to spin it with your fingers when you're up in there, because you can't hardly get up in there at all. I really had some hard times under those dashes. Anyway, that's that for now. Okay, now we'll take the assembly and we're going to stick it up against here. Bring these brake lines out of the way. Stick it up against there. Okay. Looks kind of like this seal thing here is holding her back a little bit. Got 4 of these studs hanging out. Got a little bit. A lot easier with the front end off. Okay. How tight do you tighten these? Good and tight. Let's check these while we're at it. It's loose. Sounds really loose. Okay. Now all we gotta do is tighten everything up. And she's installed. Gotta get these lines to bend over where they need to be. Okay, we'll get everything all tightened up, and I'll start bending lines and fitting lines. I can see this already has a... See, this is a larger diameter line. I don't know if you can see that. So this line here is a larger diameter, but it has this little dinky flare nut on it. I'm probably gonna be able to take that and twist it just so it goes in there. That's the rear line. If you look at these front lines, they're 3/16. They're really small. And I probably can get this lower one to go here. Hopefully, I don't know. And it looks like this one here, if I take it loose from here and come up this way, I can probably bend it around in here. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I can. Okay, I decided that we're gonna just make a brake line for the driver's side. It's just a little short 1-footer. The other one's right here. Of course, they had the hoses cut off. I don't know if you can see that. It's a pretty beat up piece there. And this end is too large a diameter. So we're gonna put the smaller one on there. This is 3/16 line. Now you can buy these fittings on Amazon. I do quite a bit of work on brakes, so I always have to have a lot of this stuff. Okay, now I'm gonna take this nut that I just pulled out, and I'm sticking it in here just to make sure it screws in, which it does. And then the other side was the same size nut, which somebody put vice grips on. Well, I would never reuse that anyway. I don't know how good you can see that, but that's pretty chowed up around there. So at least I would have done is taken this apart, saying these parts were good. I would have taken this apart and re-flared it, put a new nut on. But I'm not gonna have to do that. Now what is nice is kind of saving this stuff. I don't know. Depends on how hard it is to get off. Where's the cutter? Cut this thing off of here and see how hard it is to get that off of there. That's some pretty junky line to begin with. Okay, got that off of there. Piece of artwork. And we'll slide her onto the new piece. We'll slide a nut on there. You can see the nut. And now we're going to do the double flare process. 3/16 is the little one there. Hey, doggy. Dog's kicking the camera. He's trying to get me to throw his stick for him again. Okay. Little burr on there. Okay. Stick this swingy up in there. Just a little bit of tension with that one so it doesn't fall out on me. There's my 3/16. That's quarter. See, that's a little tight. A little tighter than it should be. Okay, that's the little one this one breaks a lot. I should have another one of those. I usually have at least two. I did show how to double flare in another video. If you're interested in exactly how to do this, it's pretty easy. You want to make sure you double flare brake lines though, because if you don't, you could have failure. I've seen flares push out. People over tighten them and then they just push right out of the back of the nut. And that's not good. Okay. Now I put this all the way to the bottom. It's seated all the way to the bottom. Take that thing out. And now we're going to flare. Now when I do these, I just go until it starts feeling like it's getting tight. You don't want to over smash it because then you don't have any crush for it to seal. I could go just a little more. Another thing is, these are 45-degree flares. When you're using like AN, you know, that braided AN fittings and stuff, those are 37-degree flares. And if you don't have the right degree, then you're gonna have a hard time getting things to seal. You can get it to seal, but it's not recommended. So we got that schwingy. Our nut's nice and flared there. Okay. Okay, this is gonna go right here. And then I'm gonna make this go into this top hole. I don't think I'm gonna come straight up because I got an inner fender, so I'll probably bend over a little bit and then come up on this side and try to just loop around and come in, loop around here and come into that. Okay, got that where I want it. Got some nice bends in here. Believe it or not, you make those bends with this cheesy Harbor Freight fender. It does both 1/4 inch and 3/16. And it's bending. It's bending without a kink. So I think what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna come up here and I'm gonna make a vibration loop. Starting about right there. Okay, I got the first line made up right here. And it's going down to here. As soon as I get a hose, it'll fit perfect. I put a little vibration loop in it right here. The way that I bend those is with a socket. Take a socket and stick it in there. A lot of times it's easier to do it in a vise. You put the socket in the vise and then put this piece in there and bend it around the socket. And then that gives it a little bit of vibration elimination there. And then once this is together, I'll take the clamp and remount this clamp that used to be right there. I'll remount it right here, so that's stable. This thing here will be vibrating a little bit. There's no way that that's not going to move, and so this here will absorb it, keep it from cracking. I've never really seen them crack before, but hey, why chance it? Okay, next line. Okay, this next line is, come on, light, right here, and it's got to go right under here. This isn't going to be long enough. So, over here on the other side, if you look at where this routes, it comes down right there, and then it goes through this stupid steering box, and then it attaches right there. I took that clamp loose. There was another one underneath there, and I'm going to try to fish that line out of there, get it straightened out, and reroute it so that I'm going to have too much line at that point, but I need to have too much line. That way I can fit it properly and make it kind of match the other one. We'll see how that goes. Okay, got the brake lines on there. I bent this one. Here's the one that I fished out that was back in there. It looped around back there. I pulled it all out of there. You got to really be careful you don't kink it when you do that. You can bend it, but don't kink it, because you can bend it back. It's kind of hard to bend back and get it straight, but anyway, I got it going up right here at the cross member. You can't see it very well, but it's coming up the cross member, coming up here, coming into there. And I got this rear line. That's the rear brakes. It's okay. I could straighten that out a little bit more. It kind of looks junky, but it's not bad. What I had to be careful of, I had to rebend this line, because I started looking at where the fender goes, and the fender bolts to this bracket, and we're going to be close. Whether this hits or not, I don't know. But it can't go on if I had to do it, I'd have to change everything clear over to this other side, and I've never seen that on one of these old Camaros. They're always coming out on this side, so I'm pretty sure this is going to be just enough clearance to clear clearance. If it rubs a little bit, I'll just bend it over a little bit and it'll be fine. So we got that going on. Now, another thing I didn't tell you was, make sure you leave these lines loose. Don't tighten them, because you're going to have to bleed your master cylinder. And I got a couple of lines I hook on here, and then they go inside, down into the fluid, and in the back down into the fluid. And then you just pump, but I don't have my pedal in yet. Next thing is going to be put the pedal in and try to get it adjusted right, and we'll go from there. Okay, getting ready to install this pedal up in here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show the install, because it's really hard to get a camera up there, but I'll see what I can do, good as I can do it. Okay, so there's this clip here is what holds the pin that holds the brake pedal on. There's a big pin that goes through the top that it pivots on. And if you look at that, that's got to fit over the top first. That thing's pretty hard to put on. Probably could slide it through there. Anyway, what I decided to do is I just got the right size snap ring and put a snap ring on there. It was a lot easier, faster, and it worked. So that's the main thing. Okay, I'm on the last parts of this, and I want to show you. It was pretty hard. Okay, probably the hardest part of this whole deal is trying to get this spring on. I got this on, This is adjusted. The jam nut is tight. I had to lower this. There's 2 holes in this brake pedal. And I had to lower it. There, that's better. I had to lower this from the top one because it'll give it too much leverage. It'll be too easy to push the pedal. So I used this old one, put a snap ring on there. And this spring on the other side of that thing is like, wow, to put on. That was probably the hardest part under here. Had to remove this pin up here to get the pedal out. And that was not that bad. It wasn't rusted in. That was pretty hard to take out when I took it apart. But otherwise, this job's pretty much complete.